The camera turns on with a soft click, and for a second all you can hear is the low hum of the engine and the faint rush of cars passing somewhere above. The red recording light blinks in the corner of the dash cam, steady and calm, like it has no idea what kind of night this is about to be. The highway stretches ahead, dark and endless, lit only by scattered streetlights that flicker like tired eyes struggling to stay open. It's past midnight, that quiet hour when the world feels paused, when even the road seems to hold its breath. Most people driving at this time just want to get home. They're not looking for answers. They're not looking for trouble. And they're definitely not looking under the highway. I wasn't either. At least, not at first. I've driven this route hundreds of times. It's a straight shot that cuts through the edge of town, passing under an old overpass that everyone knows but nobody talks about much. During the day, it's nothing special. Just concrete pillars, some faded graffiti, and shadows that don't seem very important when the sun is out. But at night, it feels different. The shadows get thicker. The silence feels heavier. And there's always this strange sense that you're not completely alone, even when the road looks empty. People online love to joke about places like this. They call them creepy, haunted, cursed. They make short clips, add dramatic music, and move on. But when you're actually there, when you're actually driving through the dark with nothing but your headlights and your thoughts, it doesn't feel like a joke. It feels personal, like the road is watching you back. That night started like any other. I had worked late, later than I planned, and my phone battery was low. I remember thinking I'd just drive straight home, no stops, no detours. The radio wasn't working properly, so the car was quiet except for the engine and the sound of tires on asphalt. I passed a few trucks, their taillights glowing red, before disappearing into the distance. Everything felt normal. Too normal. As I got closer to the overpass, the air seemed to change. That might sound strange, but anyone who's driven alone at night knows what I mean. It's not something you can see, just something you feel. The temperature inside the car felt colder, even though the heater was on. My hands tightened on the steering wheel without me realizing it. Ahead, the highway dipped slightly, and the massive shape of the bridge slowly came into view, cutting across the road like a dark scar. This is the part of the highway where people say weird things happen. Not officially. You won't find it on the news or in travel guides. But if you talk to truck drivers, night shift workers, or anyone who's spent enough time on the road after midnight, they'll tell you stories. Stories about strange movements under the bridge. About figures that don't look quite right. About sounds that don't match anything familiar. Most of the time, those stories end with a nervous laugh and a quick change of subject. I used to think that was all they were. Stories. The dash cam kept recording as I slowed slightly, not because I needed to, but because something in my gut told me to be careful. The streetlights under the overpass were dimmer than the rest, and a few of them were completely out. The darkness pooled there, thick and deep, like it had weight. My headlights cut into it, revealing the concrete pillars one by one, each covered in layers of old paint and messages left by people who probably never expected anyone to read them at night. That's when I noticed the movement. At first, it was nothing clear, just a shift in the shadows near the far right pillar. I told myself it was an animal, a stray dog maybe, or a raccoon. This area had plenty of those. My brain immediately reached for the most normal explanation it could find, because that's what we do when something doesn't make sense. We explain it away so we don't have to feel afraid. But the movement didn't match an animal. It was too slow. Too deliberate. The camera caught it better than my eyes did. Later, when I watched the footage back, I realized how much my mind tried to protect me in that moment. On screen, you can see a shape pulling back into the darkness, just out of reach of the headlights. It's tall, taller than it should be, and it doesn't move on all fours. It moves like it's thinking about every step. My heart started to race. I glanced at the speedometer, then back at the road. Part of me wanted to speed up and get out from under the bridge as fast as possible. Another part of me, the part that still believed this was nothing, told me to stay calm. Don't panic. Don't do anything stupid. As I got closer, the shape moved again. This time, it stepped forward, just enough for the headlights to catch the edge of it. Not enough to fully reveal what it was. Just enough to let me know it was there, waiting. I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. My mouth went dry. I remember whispering, "What is that?" even though no one was there to hear me. The highway was empty now. No cars. No trucks. No help. The thing under the overpass didn't rush at the car. It didn't run. It didn't make a sound. It just stood there, partially hidden behind the pillar, like it was watching me approach. Like it knew I had to pass right by it if I wanted to keep going. This is where fear becomes something else. It's no longer a sudden shock. It's a slow, heavy pressure that settles into your chest. Your thoughts start racing, but your body feels stiff, almost disconnected. You're aware of every detail, the vibration of the steering wheel, the faint smell of oil, the ticking sound of the engine. Time stretches out, each second feeling longer than the last. I thought about stopping. I don't know why. Maybe to get a better look. Maybe to prove to myself that this was just a trick of the light. But another voice in my head, louder and sharper, screamed at me not to do that. Whatever was under that highway did not feel like something that wanted help. It felt like something that wanted to be noticed. As the car rolled forward, the dash cam zoomed slightly as it adjusted to the low light. The shape became clearer, and at the same time, more confusing. It didn't have a clear outline. Parts of it blended into the darkness, like shadows layered on shadows. I couldn't see a face, but I could feel its attention on me. There's no logical way to explain that feeling, but it was strong, undeniable. I hit the gas. The engine growled as the car surged forward, headlights flashing past the pillars. For a brief moment, the shape was fully in view. The camera caught it, clear enough to raise questions, but not clear enough to answer them. Long limbs. An unnatural stillness. It didn't react like a person startled by a car. It didn't react like an animal blinded by lights. It just turned slightly, following the car with a slow, controlled movement. And then it was gone. The car burst out from under the overpass, back into the open stretch of highway, where the streetlights were brighter and the road felt safer. I didn't slow down. I didn't look back. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it over the engine. My hands were shaking, and I had to remind myself to breathe. For the next few miles, nothing happened. The road was empty, calm, almost peaceful. It would have been easy to convince myself that I imagined the whole thing, that stress and exhaustion played tricks on my mind, that the dash cam probably didn't catch anything useful anyway. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. When I finally got home, I sat in the car for a long time before going inside. The engine ticked as it cooled, and the night felt too quiet. I didn't want to check the footage right away. There was a part of me that didn't want confirmation, because imagination is easier to live within proof. Eventually, curiosity won. I watched the video alone, in the dark, volume turned up, heart racing all over again. The footage was steady, unedited, exactly as it happened. And there it was, under the highway. Frame by frame, the shape appeared, moved, watched. No jump cuts. No effects. No obvious explanation. That's when I realized something that made my skin crawl. The camera caught more than I saw. In the corner of the frame, deeper in the shadows, there was another movement. Smaller. Faster. Like something else was there too, just out of sight, waiting its turn. And as the car passed under the bridge, just before the headlights swung away, both shapes shifted at the same time. Like they were reacting to something. Or someone. This is where the story really begins. What was under that highway wasn't a one-time encounter. It wasn't an isolated incident. And the footage you're about to see raises more questions than it answers. Because once you know what to look for, once you slow it down and really pay attention, you start to notice patterns. You start to see connections to other reports, other videos, other nights, on other highways. And the scariest part isn't what the camera shows. It's what it doesn't. Because whatever lurks under the highway at night doesn't always stay there. And now that it's been seen, now that it's been recorded, there's no guarantee it won't decide to come a little closer next time. I didn't sleep much after that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the dark space under the highway, the way the headlights cut through it, and that feeling of being watched. Morning came, but it didn't bring relief. It just made everything feel unreal, like the night belonged to a different version of me. I went through my routine on autopilot, coffee in hand, phone buzzing with notifications I barely noticed. But my mind kept drifting back to the footage saved on the dash cam, sitting quietly in the car like a secret that didn't want to stay hidden. By the afternoon, curiosity turned into something heavier. I plugged the memory card into my laptop and watched the video again, this time slower, more carefully. I paused it at the moment under the overpass, zoomed in, adjusted the brightness just enough to see what the shadows were hiding. The shape was still there, still unclear, but now I noticed details I missed before. The way it leaned, the angle of its body, the unnatural stillness. It didn't feel random. It felt intentional. I sent the clip to a close friend, someone I trusted to tell me the truth instead of laughing it off. I didn't explain much. I just asked, "Tell me what you see." When they replied, there was a long pause before the message came through. "I don't like that," they said. "That doesn't look like an animal." Reading that made my chest tighten. Hearing someone else confirm what I was already thinking made it harder to ignore. That's when I started digging deeper. I searched online for the overpass, not expecting much. At first, I found nothing. Just traffic reports, construction updates, and old photos from years ago. But then I changed how I searched. I added words like night, highway, strange, and caught on camera. That's when things started to surface. Forum posts from truck drivers talking about shapes moving between the pillars. Comments under random videos mentioning the same stretch of road. A blurry photo someone claimed they took years ago but never showed clearly because people accused them of faking it. None of it was solid proof, but it was enough to make me uneasy. What stood out most was how similar the descriptions were. People talked about feeling watched, about shadows that didn't behave like normal shadows, about the urge to speed up as soon as they reached that part of the highway. Some mentioned hearing sounds, low and distant, like something shifting on concrete. Others said their cameras glitched, or their phones lost signal under the bridge. Every story ended the same way, with unanswered questions and a sense of relief once they were back in the light. I wasn't alone. That should have made me feel better. It didn't. The more I read, the more I realized this wasn't just about one strange night. This highway had a history, one that never made it into official records. Years ago, before the overpass was built, the land underneath it was empty, used as a shortcut by locals and a resting spot for long-distance drivers. There were rumors of accidents, of people disappearing briefly and reappearing miles away with no memory of how they got there. Most of those stories were dismissed, buried under time and progress. Concrete was poured. Pillars were raised. And whatever stories existed before were slowly forgotten. But places remember. A few days later, I found myself driving that same route again, even though I promised myself I wouldn't. I told myself it was just a shortcut, that I was being ridiculous. But deep down, I knew I was looking for something. Or maybe I was hoping not to find it. The dash cam was on again, red light blinking like a quiet warning. As I approached the overpass, my stomach tightened. The sun was setting, painting the sky in dull orange and purple shades. It wasn't fully dark yet, but the shadows under the bridge were already deep. I slowed down without thinking, eyes scanning the pillars, the ground, the spaces between. Nothing moved. No shapes. No strange feelings. Just silence. That almost scared me more. I passed under the highway without incident, and for a moment I felt foolish. Maybe the night before really was just exhaustion and imagination. Maybe the stories online were coincidence. I drove on, trying to convince myself that everything was normal. But that night, when true darkness fell, my phone buzzed. It was another message from my friend. They had shown the clip to someone else, someone who worked nights and drove highways for a living. Their reply was short but unsettling. "I've seen that before. Not there, but somewhere similar. Same kind of movement. Same feeling." I stared at the screen, heart racing again. How many highways had this? How many places like that existed? hidden in plain sight, passed by every night by people who never knew what was just beyond their headlights. I went back to the footage one more time, focusing on the moment when the second movement appeared. Frame by frame, I tracked it. It was subtle, almost invisible unless you knew where to look. A shift in darkness, a blur that didn't match the rest of the scene. It moved differently from the first shape. Faster. Less cautious. Like it was reacting instead of observing. That raised a question I didn't want to ask. What if the first shape wasn't the threat? The thought stayed with me, following me through the next few days. Every drive at night felt different. Every overpass, every tunnel, every dark stretch of road made me wonder what was beneath it. I started paying attention to things I used to ignore. Flickering lights. Sudden drops in temperature. That strange silence when traffic disappears all at once. I wasn't the same driver anymore. And the highway underpass wasn't done with me. One evening, while reviewing the footage yet again, I noticed something new. The timestamp. It showed a brief gap, just a second or two, where the video stuttered. At first, I thought it was a recording error. But when I compared it to the rest of the drive, nothing else glitched. Just that moment. Just under the highway. A missing second doesn't sound like much. But when you're trying to understand something that shouldn't exist, every second matters. I don't know what happened during that gap. I don't know what the camera missed. And that's what keeps me up at night. Because if something can move in the dark without being fully seen, if it can slip between frames, then what else has it learned to do? The footage may have caught something on camera, but it didn't catch everything. And whatever lurks under the highway at night is still there, waiting for the next set of headlights to slow down just long enough to notice it. After that realization, the highway stopped being just a road to me. It became a question I couldn't stop asking. Every time I drove at night, I found myself slowing near underpasses, watching the shadows longer than I should, checking mirrors even when there was nothing behind me. The dash cam stayed on always. It wasn't about content anymore or even proof. It felt like protection, like if something happened, at least it wouldn't happen unseen. I started talking to more people, carefully, choosing my words so I didn't sound like I was losing it. A coworker who drove night shifts admitted he avoided certain highways after dark. He didn't explain why at first, just said, "Some places feel wrong." When I pressed him, he mentioned an underpass where his radio always cut out and his headlights dimmed for no reason. He laughed while telling it, but his eyes didn't match the smile. Another angle came from online comments. After I quietly uploaded a short clip, cropped and slowed down, people started responding in ways I didn't expect. Some dismissed it immediately, calling it shadows or camera artifacts. But others were specific. Too specific. They pointed out the posture of the shape, the way it stood partially hidden, the timing of the movement. A few asked where the footage was taken. I didn't answer those questions. One comment stayed with me. Watch the space between the pillars, not the pillars themselves. That night, I pulled up the full video again and did exactly that. I ignored the obvious shape and focused on the empty areas, the darkness between concrete supports where the headlights barely reached. That's when I noticed something subtle but disturbing. The darkness there wasn't still. It shifted slightly, like a slow breath. Not smoke, not fog, just a change in density, almost like the dark itself was moving. I leaned back from the screen, heart pounding. It reminded me of how animals hide, by staying perfectly still, blending into their surroundings. Except this felt smarter, aware. The main conflict wasn't just about what I saw anymore. It was about what I didn't see, and how little control I actually had when driving through these places. Highways give the illusion of safety. Open road, clear direction, rules everyone follows. But underpasses break that illusion. They're pockets of something older, something forgotten, tucked beneath the flow of modern life. A few days later, something unexpected happened. I got an email from someone who claimed to work in road maintenance. No official signature, no company logo. Just a simple message saying they recognized the overpass and asking if I'd noticed anything unusual with the lighting or sound. That wording made my skin prickle. I replied cautiously, keeping it vague. Their response came quickly. We get complaints. Cameras malfunction. Sensors fail. Always in the same spots. They wouldn't say more. Around the same time, my dash cam started acting up. Nothing dramatic. Just small things. Delays when turning on. Brief flickers when passing under bridges. I checked the wiring, replaced the memory card, even tested it during the day. It worked perfectly. Only at night, only near underpasses, did it behave strangely. That made me wonder how many moments were never recorded. How many drivers experienced something and had nothing to show for it. Another subplot unfolded closer to home. I began noticing how restless I felt indoors at night. Like the walls were too quiet. I'd catch myself staring out the window when cars passed, headlights sweeping across the street. Every time one disappeared under the distant overpass, my chest tightened. It was irrational, I knew that. But fear doesn't care about logic. It feeds on patterns, and my life was starting to revolve around one. One evening, I drove with a passenger for the first time since the incident. I didn't mention anything beforehand. As we approached the highway underpass, they fell silent. Their body language changed, shoulders tense, eyes fixed ahead. After we passed through, they let out a breath and asked, "Do you ever feel weird there?" I didn't answer right away. Different perspectives began stacking up, all pointing toward the same unease. Drivers, online strangers, maintenance workers, even people who didn't know the story felt it. That told me the conflict wasn't personal anymore. It was shared, something embedded in that place, affecting anyone who moved through it slowly enough to notice. I started mapping reports, noting similarities. Nighttime encounters, camera glitches, feelings of being watched, shapes that didn't fully reveal themselves. The keywords repeated: highway, underpass, shadows, caught on camera, unexplained movement. Different locations, same pattern. The biggest question remained unanswered. Why there? Why under highways? One theory kept circling my thoughts. Underpasses are intersections of movement and stillness. Above, cars rush by without stopping. Below, everything lingers. Sound echoes. Light fades. It's a place people aren't meant to stay, only pass through. Maybe whatever exists there depends on that. On being unnoticed. On existing between moments. That idea made every drive feel like a test. The tension grew when I realized the sightings weren't random. They clustered around certain times. Late night. Early morning. Moments when traffic thinned and silence took over. Moments when a single car, a single camera, was enough. I haven't gone back under that overpass since noticing all this. Not intentionally. But avoidance brings its own fear. Because now I don't know if staying away makes me safer, or if it means I'll never see it coming when I can't avoid it. The conflict is still there, unresolved and growing. Something under the highway is being seen more often. Cameras are catching fragments of it. People are talking quietly, carefully. And whatever it is hasn't reacted yet. It hasn't chased anyone. It hasn't revealed itself fully. That silence feels intentional. Like it's waiting for the right moment, the right angle, the right set of headlights to slow down just enough. I thought keeping my distance would quiet my mind. Instead, it made everything louder. Every unexplained sound at night felt closer, more personal. The highway wasn't just a place anymore, it was an idea that followed me. I'd be sitting at home, phone in hand, when a notification would pop up from someone commenting on the clip again. New faces. New accounts. Same questions. Have you checked the other angles? Did you notice the reflection? You weren't alone in that car. That last one hit hard. I went back to the footage with fresh eyes, not just watching the road ahead, but the glass, the windshield, the side windows. I slowed it down to the point where each second felt stretched thin. And then I saw it. Not clearly, not enough to explain, but enough to feel wrong. In one frame, just as the headlights passed the central pillar, there was a faint distortion in the reflection, like a shadow that didn't belong to anything outside the car. It was inside the frame, not under the highway. I shut the laptop and sat there in silence, heart racing. My first instinct was to tell myself it was a trick of light. Reflections can do strange things. Anyone who's ever recorded at night knows that. But the problem was timing. The distortion appeared exactly during that missing second in the footage. The same gap I couldn't explain before. That's when the stakes shifted. Up until now, whatever lurked under the highway felt distant, confined, something you could escape by driving faster or choosing a different route. But this new detail suggested something else entirely. That the encounter didn't end when I left the overpass. That it may have reached further than I realized. Around the same time, reports started changing. People weren't just talking about seeing things under highways anymore. They were talking about things following them afterward. Not physically, not like being chased. More like a lingering presence. Electronics acting strange long after leaving the area. Nightmares about concrete spaces and echoing footsteps. A feeling of being watched even in familiar places. I wanted to believe it was mass suggestion. That once you notice something, you start seeing it everywhere. But then my own phone started glitching. Videos refusing to play. Audio cutting out randomly. Always late at night. Always after I reviewed the footage again. The second plot twist came quietly, almost unnoticed at first. I received a private message from someone who claimed they were in the car behind me that night. They said they recognized the timestamp and the overpass from my clip. According to them, they slowed down too, not because they saw anything, but because they felt an overwhelming urge to stop. They never did. What stopped me cold was what they said next. I didn't see what you saw, but I saw something else. Something moved closer when you sped up. Closer to me. I asked for details. They hesitated, then sent a short video recorded on their phone. The quality was terrible, shaky, dark, but the angle was different. It showed the underpass from behind, my car already pulling away. And near the far pillar, something shifted position. Not toward the road, toward the space between lanes. Toward where a car would be if it slowed too much. 2 angles. 2 recordings. Same moment. That meant whatever this was, it wasn't fixed in one spot. It reacted. It adjusted. The main conflict escalated fast after that. The idea that this thing only existed under the highway no longer held up. It used the space, sure. But it wasn't bound to it. The underpass wasn't a cage. It was a meeting point. I started questioning my own memory. That missing second. The reflection. The sense of time stretching. What if something happened in that gap that I couldn't recall? Not because it didn't happen, but because my mind refused to keep it. That thought terrified me more than anything I'd seen on camera. Then came the biggest surprise yet. The road maintenance contact reached out again. This time, their message was different. Shorter. Urgent. We're shutting down access cameras near that overpass for routine work tonight. If you have footage, save it offline. Access cameras. Plural. That confirmed something I'd been afraid to consider. There were other recordings. Other angles the public never saw. And if those were being shut down, it wasn't for repairs. It was to control what could be seen. The mystery deepened. Why hide it now? Why not earlier? Unless sightings were increasing. Unless whatever lurked under the highway was becoming more active. That night, I didn't go anywhere. I stayed home, checking feeds, forums, and local updates. Around midnight, posts started appearing. Drivers reporting sudden slowdowns near underpasses. GPS rerouting for no reason. Live streams cutting out at the same locations. The keywords flooded in all at once. Unexplained highway footage. Strange shadows caught on camera. Night driving encounters. Something was happening. The tension reached a new level when my dash cam, sitting and used in the car, powered on by itself. I know that sounds impossible. I checked the footage later. Time-stamped. Red light blinking. Recording nothing but the inside of my parked car. For 3 minutes straight. At the very end of the clip, there was a sound. Soft. Almost like a scrape against concrete. But I wasn't near any concrete. The story was no longer about what lurked under the highway. It was about why it was starting to move beyond it. About how many people had already encountered it without realizing. About how thin the line really is between passing through and being noticed. The conflict is still unresolved. Whatever this presence is, it hasn't shown its full form. It hasn't made its intentions clear. But the escalation is undeniable. More footage, more witnesses, more gaps in recordings that can't be explained away. And the scariest part is this. The highway is one of the few places left where everyone passes through without stopping, without looking too closely. If something wanted to be seen just enough to be questioned, but not enough to be understood, there's no better place to wait. And now, it feels like waiting is over. I didn't plan to go back. That's the truth. After everything that happened, after the messages, the footage, the glitches, the warnings, I told myself it was over. I had enough proof to know something was wrong, and enough fear to know I shouldn't push it further. But the problem with unanswered questions is that they don't stay quiet. They sit with you. They wait. And eventually, they pull you back. The night the access cameras went offline, I felt it before I saw anything online. A pressure in my chest, like the air itself was heavier. Around 1:17 a.m., reports stopped updating. Live traffic maps froze near that stretch of highway. Not rerouted. Frozen. Like the system didn't know what to do with that space anymore. That's when my phone rang that IT was the same maintenance contact. No greeting. No explanation. Just, if you want to understand it, you need to see it when nothing is watching. I didn't ask questions. I grabbed my keys. The drive felt longer than usual, even though the roads were empty. Street lights flickered more than I remembered. The closer I got, the quieter everything became. No wind. No distant engines. Just the sound of my tires and my own breathing. The dash cam was on, but I wasn't looking at it. I was focused on the road ahead, on the dark shape of the overpass slowly coming into view. This time, I didn't speed up. I slowed down. As my headlights reached the edge of the underpass, something shifted immediately. Not hidden. Not cautious. The darkness under the highway seemed to pull inward, like it was tightening around a center point. The concrete pillars looked closer together than before, like the space itself was compressing. Then I saw them. Not one shape. Not two. Several. They weren't fully solid, not fully shadow. They stood where the light broke apart, tall and still, their outlines changing depending on where I looked. The feeling of being watched was overwhelming, pressing against my thoughts until it was hard to think straight. My instincts screamed at me to leave, to turn around, to get out of there. But something else happened. The dash cam screen flickered, then stabilized. And for the first time, the image was clear. What lurked under the highway wasn't random. It wasn't feeding on fear. It wasn't following people home. It was anchored, bound to the space beneath the road, to the constant movement above it. The shapes didn't advance because they didn't need to. They observed. They adjusted. They learned patterns from every car that passed, every hesitation, every glance into the dark. The missing second in the footage finally made sense. That gap wasn't a malfunction. It was the moment the system couldn't process what it was seeing. The maintenance contact was right. Cameras weren't failing. They were being overwhelmed. Whatever existed, there didn't reflect light the way normal objects do. It existed in the negative space, in the moments between frames. That's why recordings glitched. That's why memories felt incomplete. The human mind did the same thing the cameras did. It skipped what it couldn't understand. The climax came fast after that. One of the shapes moved forward, not aggressively, but deliberately. The ground beneath it didn't crack or shake. It simply darkened, like light was being pulled away. My car stalled. The engine died without warning. The highway above remained active, cars passing, unaware that just beneath them, time felt stretched thin. I thought that was it. Then the shape stopped. All of them turned, not toward me, but upward. That's when I realized the final truth. They weren't waiting for drivers. They were waiting for gaps. Moments when traffic slowed just enough. When cameras blinked. When attention drifted. They didn't hunt people. They occupied blind spots created by constant motion. And tonight, with the access cameras shut down and traffic systems frozen, the blind spot was wider than it had ever been. The engine suddenly restarted on its own. The shapes began to pull back, melting into the pillars, the ground, the space beneath the road. One by one, they vanished, leaving the underpass empty again. Normal. Silent. I didn't stay. I drove away slowly, hands shaking, heart pounding, knowing that whatever I'd just witnessed was a cycle, not an ending. The highway above continued as if nothing had happened. People passed over that space without ever knowing how close they came to something they couldn't see. The conflict was resolved in the only way it could be. There was no confrontation, no victory, just understanding. The presence under the highway wasn't evil. It wasn't human. It was a consequence of space, movement, and neglect. A byproduct of building places meant to be passed through, not looked at. I uploaded the final footage the next day. Most people saw shadows. Some saw glitches. A few recognized the pattern immediately. The comments were divided, arguments forming, theories spreading. The story went where stories always go once they leave your control. But here's the unexpected twist. When I reviewed the footage one last time, I noticed something I missed before. The timestamp didn't match real time. According to the camera, I was under that highway for over 8 minutes. According to my memory, it was less than 30 seconds. And according to traffic data from that night, there was one unexplained slowdown above the overpass that lasted exactly 8 minutes. No accidents, no reports, just cars slowing down all at once without knowing why. Which means whatever lurks under the highway at night didn't just observe us that time. For a brief moment, it touched the flow above it. And if it learned how to do that once, there's no reason to believe it won't happen again.